just begin to let out your own song. Begin to sing out your own song of worship.
victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, oh bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, oh ruler of all. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In green pastures he makes me lie down. He restores my soul and leads me on for his great name. Surely goodness, surely mercy, right beside me, all my days, and I will dwell in your house forever, and bless your holy name. You prepare a table right before me, in the presence of my enemies. Though the arrow flies and the terror of night is at my door, I'll trust you, Lord. Surely goodness, surely mercy, right beside me all my days, and I will dwell in your house forever, and bless your holy name. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are on my side. Oh, and even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are on my side. Surely goodness, surely mercy, right beside me all my days, and I will dwell in your house forever.
All right, good morning, everyone. If you can make your way to a seat, that would be great. Thanks for being here this morning. We want to get the Roys up here. They said I could say Roy. It's Wah, but if you get their prayer bulletin and like over email and you see ROY and you're like, who are these people? It's them, okay? So some of you may not know this couple. They are kind of one of our newest missionaries. 4 years ago, we took them on for support. And one of the main reasons honestly, I don't even know how we got introduced. Maybe you can remember and remind us all? Email, maybe? One of the main reasons we were interested in them was because of what their intent on ministry was. The more we do missions, the more we see if nationals are trained to do the work of the ministry, the better off that mission field is. Because they can minister to their people much more effectively than we can minister to them sometimes. And so what really piqued our interest in them was his primary objective was to train nationals. And so we got excited about that. If you were here at the time, you remember them. All of you fell in love with them as a couple, and they only had a small family back then, and the family is growing now. So we're excited to have them back. I was looking at emails back and forth between Jeremie and I over the last, I think, 2 or 3 months, and there's like 25 different emails trying to figure out a time to come because he was supposed to be here during day camp. Their family was supposed to be here during day camp. Well, that got canceled, and then all these other dates got canceled, and so that brings us to today. We're thankful that they're here. So Jeremie's going to come up, his wife as well. She's going to share something, and then I think he'll leave some time for questions at the end, right? All right. Welcome, guys.
Well, good morning. It's a joy for us to be here, have the opportunity to report. We're very grateful for today, the fellowship, even though sometimes it's felt a little strange during the pandemic, but we're grateful to have the opportunity to fellowship. Also very thankful for your prayer support and financial support. That means a lot to us. So since it's been a while, just give a quick testimony just for you. Perhaps some of you weren't there, so you know where we're from, how we got to know the Lord. Then we'll talk about the ministry.
Good morning. So my name is Amy, and I just wanted to tell you really briefly about myself. I grew up in Spain. Well, I was born in Spain. My parents are missionaries there. They're still there. Will retire there. That's their life now. So I thank the Lord. I praise Him that He saved me at an early age. I was 6 years old, and grew up in the ministry, and then I came to the States, I studied music education, and then I went back to Spain and met Jeremie there. He'll tell you how we met. So that's just in a nutshell. We have Olivia, who's 4, and Elliot, who's 2, and Sophia will be born in 2 months, Lord willing, or I don't know if it's 2 months now.
Month and a half.
October 27th is her due date. So that's coming up fast. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So I grew up in Quebec, Canada, so French Canada, hence the Roy thing there. We do say Roy in English, it's just how it is. So my dad's a pastor, has been for more than 30 years there. I made a profession of faith at an early age. I was a rebellious teenager. So in college, I had plans to, I had to do a student exchange program because I was studying international business. My plan was, all right, I always went to church regardless because, my dad's a pastor. So my plan was upon going to my exchange, I would just quit going to church. But anyway, somehow my dad got in touch with a missionary and got me to stay, to land in Spain with a Christian family. And so under those circumstances, I went to church, and God worked in my heart, and I repented of my sins in November of 2008. So then afterwards, I met Amy, who grew up at a sister church to that I was going, of the church that I was going. And we started dating, and the rest is history. So after college, very shortly after I came to know the Lord, I knew that I had a call to full-time vocational ministry, so I went to seminary and then prepared to go to the Dominican, and we started there in 2016. And so now, talking about ministry, we went to the Dominican to transition an existing Bible Institute to a more full-time Bible college, and also to integrate a local church. So I'll let Amy first talk about what she does, her role in the church, and a little bit about life in the DR, and then I'll continue with the rest of the presentation.
I don't hardly ever do this because every church we've been in because of COVID is like super short amount of time. So I'm glad that I get to share this with you this morning. Just a little glimpse into daily life for us in the Dominican. My role there is primarily just a wife and a mom. I feel very strongly that my main ministry is to my family and to allow Jeremie to focus on the seminary. And so my daily life is just staying at home and being a mom. And it does look different there because, life just takes a lot more work there. Every process is more laborious. Just there's not as many conveniences. So in that sense, it looks different than if I were a stay-at-home mom here in the States. But it's also, another factor is the safety. We can't just, walk out of the house and go to a park nearby. It's lots of bolts and locks and gates and doors and precautions. I don't really go many places without Jeremie unless I'm sure of the surroundings or so that has been an adjustment. Olivia was 9 months when we moved there, so that's kind of all I've known of being a mom. So being in the States it's really interesting to be able to just walk to a park. It's been cool. But we get used to it, and it's not something that's a burden. It's just how life is there, and you can always find things to be grateful for. I remember coming back or talking to friends here at one point and being like, I just feel so isolated. There were times where I have felt isolated, and they said, well, I do too. Like, I'm stuck in my house in Michigan in the winter, and so I was like, oh, okay. So everybody has their struggles. And you can always find something to be thankful for. And so that's life at home. And I really want to exemplify to the Dominican girls and young moms in the church what it is to really take care of your home. Not that I'm perfect at it, but just for your priority to be your husband and your kids. I know some people have to work full time, and in the Dominican, it's very rare for a woman to be a stay-at-home mom. Most of them work outside the home. There's one lady in our church who's a stay-at-home mom, and it was a very hard decision for her. It was super countercultural for her to decide to stay at home. And so I want to support women like that because they feel the burden of raising their own kids. And so I want to exemplify that to my friends, to the young moms in the church. And then in the church, I am just a member. Like Jeremie said, we wanted to really integrate ourselves into a local church. So I lead the nursery ministry and help with music. So those are and then we just love to have people in our home, just informal discipleship. So that's what my life at church looks like.
You can bring it with you. So when we arrived in the Dominican, there was this one Bible Institute that had been existing for roughly a decade, had 2 pastors with Bible Institute training. It had about 15 students. It was in one location, and the academics were very easy. Now, they were doing a great job, but the reason we got extended the invitation to go there was to up that level of education. And so that's what we did in God's grace. We were able to do that. Then in the local church that's pastored by a Dominican, I teach the men's Sunday school, and I'll preach usually once a month, though that'll vary. Many times before we came back to the States, I was once a month in a different church just to promote the college. And we say college, seminary, it's the same thing. It's not a master's level, it's undergrad level. It's just in the Latin world you call a Bible institute, seminary, whatever you call that, seminary. So we had goals, also more of a mid-range, long-range goals. Mid-range was starting a master's in theology. And we think that's possible still. God has put together a team that's far and beyond what we hoped we could get. We have 5 men preparing, working on doctorates. And so we think that, if everyone, let's say, finishes their doctorates, and we'll just see how God has things happen then. So we've been there 4 years, and then another 6 years, it'd be 10 years. It seems feasible. Then indigenization, we had set a target for 15 to 20 years. And the truth is, we don't know how that's going to look like. We don't know how long that's going to take. All we can do right now is plant indigenization seeds towards that end. Now, before I talk about the ministry, I'll just tell you a little bit of the process of how we got to that. What the first 3 years have been like. And in a nutshell, there have been a lot of difficulties. Your world gets rocked when you just live in a different cultures. All your unwritten rules by which you function normally have changed. And so there's a lot of irritation in this area, that area, and the other area. And what's important for us, I'd say, are 2 things to keep a God-centered attitude when you go through that, so you don't just react based on your frustration. And then the second thing is to learn from the culture, because though you're frustrated about stuff, it's just a different way of doing things, and you can actually learn quite a few things. And so the first 6 months were just getting our bearings, and because we both speak the language, spoke it before we got there, we went deep and fast. Within the first year, the school had started, so I was leading that new school, and we were also working very regularly, deeply into the church. And so our exposure to culture was deep and fast. But the first 6 months, what we did was, all right, buy a car, a bank account, driver's license, visas, and say, that's not too bad. But then it took us 10 visits in 2 months to open a bank account. I think we must have spent in work days a month trying to get our visas, and we still couldn't get those because the system was not a full circle for our daughter's visa. So in essence, immigration there said something, and the consulate here said something else, and we had to try to figure out a way for them to communicate, for them to actually change their system for our daughter to get a visa. And so it took us 3 or 3.5 weeks before our first thing that we're trying to do would get done. It took us 3.5 weeks to buy our car. And so it's just the first 6 months, you're just trying to figure life out. And at first, stuff like that is quite irritating, but then you just, it's just how it works, and you get over it, and God, shows you that that's fine. So we got over that. And then roughly around the 6-month mark, I don't exactly remember, I was already laying the groundwork for the school. And so writing the doctrinal statement, the philosophy, the curriculum, and it's not like I invented all that myself. I just looked at schools here, tried to figure out what they do, and try to figure a way that we could do something that seemed reasonable for what we needed. And then almost to the day, or to the exact day, the year marker after we arrived in the Dominican, so in 2016, that was September 15th, and I think it was September 15th of 2017, the school launched. So then we had to figure out the logistic of the 5 different campuses, online education, teach everyone how to do. It was quite chaotic at first. And people were like, we're kind of getting a taste of that right now with COVID, right? Online education. So we were doing that then, and thankfully we're able to continue with our school because we're already doing that. And so my job consists of presiding over the school. I lead board of directors meetings. I used to lead teachers meetings, but now the dean does that. So we've just been figuring out how to do things as we've gone. I still have a lot of work with finances, marketing, registration, and actually trying to work myself out of that and try to hire someone for that currently. And so, culture, a couple words on culture. So the culture here, the general culture lives for material. You live to just get stuff, to have fun. And the Dominican, they'll live to appear in a certain way. So it's not about just having fun. It's mostly about how you look before the others, because it's a collective culture, a culture of power. So you could say power and appearance are the two governing things in culture. And it doesn't matter if you're broke, you will do everything that you can to try to associate yourself with powerful people and to look like you have something. So it's a rich and poor culture, and it's not everyone can work their way up. It's about who you know, and so you try to associate yourself to look in a certain way. So it's a high hierarchy culture, the rich and poor. And so I've had to learn to lead in this culture. I'm figuring out culture as I lead the school. It's been interesting. And also learn how to be under a leader in the church. And so I say, and it sounds bad, but it's true, at best what you have, the type of leader you have is a benevolent dictator. So there was a dictatorship in the DR from 1930 to 1961, and that's weaved into the fabric of the culture. There's usually is a high distance between the leader and the followers. And so we've been trying to figure life out in that regard. So anyways, that's how we got to where we are. And the reason we've been able to do what we've done is really because of prior missionary work. Baptist Missions pioneered from 1950 to 1993 in the Dominican Republic. And different missionaries retired, other missionaries just transitioned fields. It was an organic transition. And so from then on, with our constituency at least, the church planting movement was indigenous. And in 2006, they got some more contact with the mission and asked for help for training nationals. And it's only a decade later that, in God's providence, we have shown up. You know, that's all they could find. So we came up, and we're pleased to be used, though, as frail vessels to serve in that capacity. And so we work with roughly 60 churches. Some are more directly related. Others are just, sending students. And that's who we work with. So we have one undergraduate program. It has 2 tracks to respect the gender roles. Most of the classes are the same for everyone. There's just a few classes that differ. We have 14 teachers, and all of our teachers have master's degrees. When we headed for the Dominican, we originally had 4 guys that were working on a master's degree plus myself. And what I was told was, well, you might just have 2 of those guys that will work with you. Well, they all work with us. Another coworker with the mission joined, and we merged. Another school merged with us. So there's 14 teachers, 11 Dominicans, and 11 of those degrees are in Bible. And so we're very thankful for just seeing God's hand at work in the school up to this point. Board of Directors was put together, 10 Dominican pastors. They roughly have 20 plus years of pastoral experience. They're known to be wise men, to have wisdom within our constituency. And then there's the 2 missionaries on the board. So we have those 5 locations. We've had 30 to 50 students. If God wills, we'll graduate 11 students October 10th. So we were supposed to graduate the students August 29th, but then had a few meetings and had to do quarantine upon coming back, and anyway, so we postponed the graduation. And we just started the semester yesterday. So I was teaching last night from 5:30 to 8:30, a hermeneutics class, and we thought our numbers would be down, but we started with 58 students, so we're grateful for that. Usually, though, after a couple of 3 weeks, maybe we'll lose probably 10 of them, but so the Dominicans just, I guess, don't. It's more of a last-minute culture, and so they'll jump into something, and they're like, wow, man, that's a lot of work. So it happens here, too. But I think due to that nature, our enrollment varies a little more than it would here. So the picture's a little dark, but when I teach normally, so in the pandemic it's different. Everyone's on Zoom from their home, and it will be like that until January at least. But normally, I have a classroom that's present, and then there's 4 other classrooms that connect via, that's Microsoft Teams there, but it's the same thing as Zoom. And we want the students to be there together at least most of the time, because it's just not the same as just being from home or watching a video, not a live feed. And so this allows for interaction within the student body and direct questions and answers with the professor. And so we value that. It's an important part of our training that we give there. I guess that stopped working, so, there we go. So that's what's going on right now, and then as we look ahead, we have been trying to start 2 new campuses, and by campus we just mean a classroom in the church or an auditorium in the church. There are 2 Baptist missions missionaries that have been pastors, church planters in Honduras for 20 plus years, so we're humbled to have them ask us if we could help them by training men in San Pedro Sula, which is the capital of Honduras. So we were supposed to start this now, but due to the pandemic that was stopped. So we're still thinking that that's in the near future, but we don't know. And there was interest expressed for another campus to be started within country, but the pandemic stopped that, and I'm still not sure if that's going to happen. So that's still in our plans as we look ahead. And then we're trying the best that we can to give the best quality. But there's 2 tangible ways in which we were trying to augment the quality of our programs. One of them is accreditation, so I'll give us tangible academic criterion against which we'll measure ourselves. And then the other one is the main residential campus. So, the first thing, the first reason we want this campus is just, we kind of need an address. So, what school do you have? Well, we use a classroom in the church here and there. And we had to start like that, but it's important for us to have a main location. But mainly what we're trying to do here is focus on character development. Now, what we do is good, but we want to develop and not change what we're currently doing, but add the main campus to what we're currently doing. And we think that the main campus, the residential campus, will allow us to cater to a younger constituency. So our age average is 36 years of age. We have students ranging from 22 to 62 years of age. And our student body consists of 25, that was the past semesters. We had 50 students, 25 men preparing for the pastorate or in the pastorate, and the other half were preparing for just Sunday school or other ministries. So we had, of the 50, 15 women, I think. And so we think that this will allow us to train just right out of high school type for college age students and impact their character in that way. And so just discipleship, life on campus will help to that end, instead of just, all right, we'll see you, online for 3 hours and you just keep on doing life. And so that's really our focus with the residential campus. And then with regards to faculty, though all our faculty has master's degrees, 4 of our faculty have 55 credit masters. And so per discipline, for accreditation and also for just quality purposes, the disciplines being New Testament, Old Testament, and so on and so forth, theology, they need more credits. So we're in the process as we can to try to have them do further credits per discipline for, again, academic and accreditation, or quality and accreditation purposes. And then, as I said, 5 men are doing doctorates, and so we're continuing the whole training process. I just started mine. My first class is actually starting officially, though the semester started August 28th. My first class is September 21st, so a Doctor of Ministry and Preaching. There are 2 areas that we really want to focus in. Churches, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on, but preaching is central, and then also counseling. And so right now, 3 of our men are doing degrees that would fit with a master's in preaching. Myself, another guy, a master's in preaching, and a guy, our dean, is doing a PhD in biblical exposition. And so with those areas of emphasis, we hope that in 5-6 years down the road, Lord willing, we'd be able to put up a master's in expository preaching. So that's what our plans are as we look ahead. So our campuses, you can see the darker gray arrows on the map. Those are where we're at. Between, let's see here. So this is the capital city, Santo Domingo, has 3.5 million inhabitants roughly, and that's about 3 hours from here. That's the big tourist area. We've lived here. We still will live here for about a year, we think, before we move to this area for the residential campus. And this is just where we were thinking that we were going to open another campus. And so speaking of the residential campus, as you've been following our prayer updates, it's not been a linear path. It's been very challenging. We're looking at a piece of land that was very expensive, but to make a long story short, God opened the doors in an area we're thinking was not possible for a very cheap piece of land after we had reevaluated and asked the men to go out and look for land. Nothing was coming up, and then out of the blue, there's just this one option that's like 1/10 of the price of what we're looking at. And there's very specific reasons for that. The brother-in-law of one of the pastors owned it, and for other reasons it was cheaper, but we're very grateful we were able to buy the land about 6 weeks ago. And so now we can focus on the building costs. I'm still lacking a few final details. I don't know if it'll be 240, 270, but essentially we're still nevertheless going forward and raising the money for the building costs. And then for operations, we are wanting to raise about $1,200 a month. And now, how this all fits with our indigenous philosophy, and what part do the Dominicans have in this? So there are 2 factors. Is there just pure economics, and there's more complex cultural factors. A Dominican household, on average, will make $8,000 in a year. And purchasing power parity of what that would mean in the States is about $18,000. It's like trying to raise your household on $18,000. So they're a poorer country, they're a progressing third world economy, but in essence, they don't have much disposable income. And for those reasons, we think that initially, and for cultural reasons, we need to raise the majority of the building costs from the US or international, and they will do what they can. They're willing to help. And then where it really matters for me philosophically, looking at the long run, is operations, that would be continually sustained by the Dominican church. Now I do have to put a caveat here. When you go and plant a church, usually, emphasis on the usually, a church will become indigenous. But of the schools that very, very few are financially independent. And so this puts a lot of complication to our whole indigenous thing. At the end of the day, we still have to depend on external institutions. And so anyways, the best that we think that we can do in terms of indigenization is we've agreed with Dominicans, according to what was thought they could do, is that they'd provide about 35% of operations now, and they would go augmenting with time. So that's the best we can do. That's what we're trying to do in terms of long-run indigenization, so rendering the work independent in terms of finances and leadership. And then the leadership, we have the training going on. The most difficult part, and we don't know how that would happen, would be replacing myself, the president, and then the dean, which is my other coworker who's doing a PhD in biblical exposition. And so I don't really know, again, the timing of that. Part of the difficulty there is I look around and I see other men who have been in leadership roles like mine in much more established schools, so it's hard to compare there. But they tend to have very long ministries, and it kind of has to do also with the Dominican leadership style. It's the guy leading. So I don't know how God will, we don't want to render the work dependent on us again, but it'll take a lot of wisdom to not overstay but not understay, so that the work just collapses after we would leave. So that's our goal. And if you would want to give, there's a Baptist Missions link online, or just a traditional mailing. Field Projects Fund for the construction, it'd be that link, that sub-fund, the Dominican Republic Seminary construction, or just for ongoing support, there's also the Dominican International Baptist Seminary. So our main campus is the orange X, sorry, I am colorblind, so we'll be right there. It's pretty central to our location. And would you ask that you please pray for my wife, who is due at the end of October, for safe travels. We've looked into the whole safety aspect, that servant-hearted leaders would be the fruit of the college, for spiritual and physical protection, for the fundraising, and also for one more missionary couple. There's a lot of work, and we think, though we don't want many missionaries, we think one more would be useful. So I do have time for questions and answers. I do want to say, though, before, on the table in the back, I do have a prayer sign-up sheet and prayer cards. So if you don't receive our prayer updates and would want to, please just write your name and email. So if you have any questions, I think I have 4 or 5 minutes here. Yes, sir.
Do students pay tuition?
Yes, the students pay tuition. The amount is not much. And we have students that make $200 a month. So to give you an idea, public university, at least one of them that we know, the students for medical school paid like $800 a semester, and that varied. And so we don't charge much. I think they pay, for the semester, they'll pay, $120 for books and tuition. I saw another hand. Yes, sir.
You talk about the discrepancy between the rich and the poor. Where do your students typically come from? Do they come out of the poor community and be able to?
So where do the students come from? Are they rich or poor? So most of them, there's a growing middle class. It's slim. I'd say most of our students are on the poor side of things, and some of them do well, but there aren't really like super well off students. Anyone else? Yes, sir. The program is 3 years, so we, at this point, have started with hardly any gen ed. We offer 1 grammar class, 1 computer class, and 1 education class. And so we have the undergraduate degree that the students that take that usually transfer in gen ed from a secular institution. And so our program is 3 years of Bible, and we graduate them with an undergraduate degree. And I saw, yes, sir.
I was wondering about the cost of living, like going shopping or growing up food. What does that look like?
So the cost of living, that varies. So just to compare with here, I think groceries are more expensive there. It costs us a little more, not too much more than it costs us here. Gasoline is much more expensive. Buying a car is about 35% more expensive because you have the import fees. But then rent is not as expensive. That makes a big difference. And yeah.
Are the cities and the country as a whole pretty supportive of what you're trying to do?
So Yeah, I mean, our constituency is, there's always like, oh, those foreigners, coming in and let us do our own thing. We have had opposition starting, but I mean, we went there to do something, and we're not going to stop because of that. So, yes.
Given the culture of women working, do you have any women students?
Yes, we have 15 women students. And Dominican universities usually are, and usually, not always, usually are on weekends, because there's not the same kind of flexible work schedule culture as here. When you work, you usually, again, will work full days and half days on weekends, on Saturdays. And so because of that, Saturdays and Sundays, and so we have, our school has 9 hours of classes on Saturday, and it has classes on Monday night. Anyone else? No? All right, well, thank you so much.
All right. It's amazing what happens in 4 years. You were going over all that, and I got tired just listening to that. Like, that's a lot of work. So I'm actually thankful for you guys and for the work that you've done. You should be, say this in a good way, you should be proud. Job well done. So as a pastor of a church that supports missionaries, we're thankful for you guys and the work that you're doing. Both of you, your job is equally as important with your little ones. So I'm going to close in prayer. We'll have 15 minutes or so to talk and fellowship. If you have some more questions for Jeremie and his wife, feel free to come on up and talk to them. But let's pray together. God, thank you for the work that you are doing in the Dominican. Thank you for the work that was done years ago by missionaries that planted these churches, that brought the gospel to that part of the world. That work then spread, and it became mostly churches run by Dominicans themselves. But now, God, the important part is the training. They need the ongoing training so that they can do the work of the ministry with quality, with confidence that what they are sharing is truth, that those that are serving within the ministry, whether full-time or just as volunteers, are trained and trained well. And so we are thankful for this work. We're thankful for all that has been done already. That just the doors you have opened in 4 years to make things happen as quickly as it has gone has just been tremendous. The people that you have brought to Jeremie's ministry there and have supplied quality individuals to teach with degrees that are essential. God, we pray for their ongoing studies as they try to get these extra degrees that would bring about their accreditation. God, I pray that you would help each one of them to have clear minds and hearts to be able to do that work. They would have the energy, the stamina to do that work. They would not give up that work, knowing that their ability to complete that will further enhance their ability to minister to others who are taking the gospel throughout that country. So keep them faithful to that, I pray. God, we look forward to our time of worship and learning here in a few moments. We ask that you would bless that. In Christ's name, amen. You're dismissed for a little bit.